Hi folks, how you doing? This is Iqbal with NVIDIA weekly analysis and assessment. NVIDIA still has not got the positive momentum before the earnings so far. Can NVIDIA still go up in next 3 days before the earnings? We'll try to discuss this topic in this video. To make the analysis, we'll use historical data before the earnings for last 4 quarters because that will give us a good data point to make an assessment for this earning cycle. Now, let's get started. Starting with the daily and the weekly summary, you see that on Friday, Nvidia closed at 134.40. That was 4.08% down. And last 5 days for the whole week, last week, Nvidia is still down about 1.46%. Year to date, still down about 2.83%. And last 1 year, Nvidia is still up about 71%. So that's not a bad return in just 1 year. And if we talk about the weekly candlestick chart that you see on your screen, you can notice that last week we had the red candlestick that tells that last week Nvidia had the negative closing. But before that, two green candlestick chart, positive closing, and before that, you see red candlestick. If you remember in my last week weekly analysis video, I had the expectation that the last week should also close as positive, but that did not happen. So most of the time, my assessment goes okay, but I cannot be right all the time, right? So if you go prior week, you see not a clarity of direction. So next week also, I expect, Nvidia would show lots of volatility. And by the end of next week, I think that Nvidia should close positive. But anything can happen, right? Next week could also be a negative closing week for Nvidia. Now, let's move on to our big topic for this video. That is historical data analysis for last 4 quarters. Let's get started. You see this table on your screen. I downloaded NVIDIA daily closing price for last 1 year, and also it includes the opening price and highs and lows on the daily basis. So before we dig into our quarterly earnings analysis, let's take a look what are the earnings did for last 4 quarters, and that would help us in our analysis. Let's take a look. So you see on your screen, the last earnings was reported on November 20th, 2024, and before that August 28th, and before that is May 22, and before that that was February 21, 2024. So let's start with the February 21, 2024 quarter. Let's go back to our table. So if I scroll down, so you see here February 21, 2024. So Nvidia reported the earnings after the closing bell on 21st. So I highlighted these 5 lines that would show how Nvidia behaved 5 days just before the earnings. Okay, so you see that the adjusted closing price is here that I that I'm highlighting here. Okay, so here I calculated the percentage change on the daily basis. You see that from here to here, Nvidia went down 2.45%. The next day, Nvidia went down 1.68%, and so on. The last day before the earnings, Nvidia went down about 2.85%. Okay, and if we calculate total last 5 days, you see that Nvidia went down about 6.50%. And that also tells the cumulative percentage change. Okay. And if you go 1 quarter after that, that happened on May 22nd, 2024. And 5 days before the earnings, I highlighted in yellow. The very first day, 5 days before the earnings, Nvidia went down about 0.29%. Next day, Nvidia went down about 1.99%, and so on. The last day before the earnings, Nvidia went down about 0.45%. The total last 5 days before the earnings, Nvidia went up about 0.39%, and that also tells the cumulative percentage change. Okay, let's move on. 1 quarter after that, the next earnings happened on August 8, 2024. So I highlighted these lines that includes last 5 days before the earnings. So the very first day, 5 days before the earnings, Nvidia went down about 1.78%. The next day, Nvidia went down about 6.36%, and so on. The last day, just before the earnings, Nvidia went up about 6.13%. The total 5 days, Nvidia went down about 3.35%. That also tells the cumulative percentage change. And if you move 1 quarter up, you see that Nvidia announced the earnings on November 20th, 2024. So I highlighted these 5 lines in yellow. The very first day, 5 days before the earnings, Nvidia went up about 0.34%. The next day, Nvidia went down about 3.26%, and so on. The last day, just before the earnings, Nvidia went down about 0.76%. Total, last 5 days, Nvidia went down about 0.08%. You see here, and that is based on cumulative percentage change. And in this quarter, we still have 3 days to go before the earnings, but few days before that, you see that Nvidia is still behaving in negative direction. 0.63% up on 20th and 4.05% down on 21st. The total so far, Nvidia is down about 3.42%. As I mentioned, we still have 3 days to go before the earnings. So I summarize this data in this table that would help us doing the comparison. So you see here on this table the summary of the total percentage change 5 days before earnings for last 4 quarters. Okay, so you see that one message is consistent. In last 4 quarters, Nvidia went down in last 5 days just before the earnings. So if we think that that data is relevant, so in this cycle before the earnings for last 5 days total, we should expect Nvidia to go down. Okay, I'm talking about in total, not just one day. So far, Nvidia is down about 2.79%. So there is a chance that in next 3 days, overall total Nvidia can still go down a few percentage point. But you never know, right? Sometimes it could be an outlier. Sometimes, Nvidia can behave very differently than the historical data. Okay. But I just wanted to show you this data so you can relate that. I hope this data can help you in making the right transactions before the earnings. And also, I uploaded this Excel sheet onto my Patreon account. So if you are an exclusive member, you can access this spreadsheet from there. And also, I hope you like this video. Again, thanks for watching and talk to you in the next video. Take care.